expertise on the latest in tech news and online safety have made her a sought-after speaker on these topics. In fact, you may recognize her as a frequent tech contributor to media outlets such as CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, Fox News, Sirius XM Radio, CNBC, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, USA Today, and now Leverage Parents in the Gym. Also, Titania is the co-author and the best-selling title Parenting in a Tech World. That's the name of tonight's session, and she's been named one of the top women who lead and light up Atlanta's tech ecosystem. So please join me in welcoming Titania Jordon. Do you need a mic? Yes. Yes, it is.
Just flip it all the way up.
Okay, there we go. Hi everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. I know we're all crazy busy, plenty of things you could be doing right now, but you're here. And for those of you watching online, thank you for being here, at least having at least one tab open on me and maybe something else. But anyway, you're here, so thank you. Why am I here? I'm a mom. I have a 14-year-old son, he's in 8th grade. I was born in the 80s, grew up before social media, before smartphones, and then spent my career in the world of traditional media, then social media, then tech, then online safety. I have seen some things, I have heard some things, I have learned a lot of things, and my goal is to help you feel empowered and equipped so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls that I personally have experienced with raising my son, and then avoid some of the struggles that so many parents just like us have experienced, because parenting today is very unique. It is unlike any other time in human history, thanks to the access that kids have. So, anyway, I have an unusual name, and I am very active on social, not because I like it, but because it's an important and powerful platform for education. For example, I posted an Instagram video maybe 2 weeks ago that went viral. It has like 1.6 million views right now, and it's just showing a top and bottom comparison of a filter that I found on TikTok called the teen filter that turns 42-year-old me into like 13-year-old me. And it's creepy, and it's in real time, and it's video. And is it fun? Is it funny? Sure. Is it creepy, and could predators use it to prey on your children? Yes. And anyway, so if you would like to keep tabs on what's going on in the world of parenting and in tech, follow me. That's my name. I'm all the places. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all of it. I'm looking forward to the day where I can not be tethered to my smartphone. But for now, it's what I do, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to do it. You'll also see that there's an emoji over my son's face. And I like to start every presentation out with just a reminder to all of us, and I needed this as well, as an oversharer in my son's early days, that we can set a really good example for our kids by modeling what should and should not go online. And if we're sharing photos of our kids, whether it's their first steps to the spelling bee that they won, sports achievements, vacation photos, recital photos, that's creating a digital footprint for them. And that's not necessarily ideal. They need to grow up and realize what they want or don't want to be out in the world about them. And also, the more you put out into the world about your children, gives people, even in your inner circle, more information about them that unfortunately can be used to groom them. And a lot of times, the people who we trust, the people we are closest to, are the people who are looking to have inappropriate relationships with our kids. So just limit what you put out there about your kids. You know, every beginning of the school year, my feeds are just flooded with pictures of kids holding up plaques with their full names and who their teachers are, what grade they're in, what their favorite foods are. And I'm just like, oh, that's so sweet and that's so dangerous. Stop doing that. So anyway, I say this to you out of love, not out of judgment, because I used to post all the things about my son as well. So, it's not all about me tonight. It's about you and the questions that you have. This QR code that hopefully you'll be able to pull up your smartphone, take a picture of, it'll take you to a site. You'll be able to ask me anything. And the cool part about it is I don't know who's asking me what. It's anonymous. It goes to a Google form. It doesn't tell me who you are. It doesn't give me your IP address or your email address or your name. Ask me anything. There's a lot of tough questions that I bet a lot of us are sitting on. You might not want to raise your hand and ask them directly. You also could raise your hand and ask them directly, but I like to give you the opportunity to ask this way. Also, for those of you watching online, I believe a link was shared for you to ask those questions, and so when I get to the end of this, I'll be going through all of them and addressing them. So, before we get started, I want to show you about a 2-minute, 12-second trailer of this documentary called Childhood 2.0. How many of you have seen this already? Thank you. Awesome. Gold star. Powerful film that goes deep to what it's like to be a kid today. It'll rock you to your core, and I will stop talking.
A long time ago, families were in communities. They were local, they were small.
I was born in the very depths of the Great Depression. I was put to work carrying wood, carrying water. I knew how to shell peas, I knew how to break beans. We still didn't have electricity.
I have 2 Instagram accounts.
I use Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok.
TikTok and Fortnite. I can just scroll for hours on end. 11 hours a day.
It's been 8, 9.
Maybe like 12.
It's actually been a way that we can keep track of them out there in the real world where things really are scary.
The lives of kids were sort of changing slowly for a while, and then all of a sudden, those kids were able to get on social media, and that's when everything skyrocketed.
The rates at which they're experiencing problems continues to increase.
We also know that the teen suicide rate increased 56%.
Last year alone, we received over 18 million reports of international and domestic online child sexual abuse.
We have traded a false sense of safety and security for actually putting our kids in riskier situations.
I call it the race to the bottom of the brainstem. So it starts with techniques like pull to refresh.
Pretty much every guy has like an addiction to it, but no one talks about it.
But it's just faster now, and it's younger.
Well, yeah, like nudes of girls go around the school all the time.
At the beginning of the year, there were multiple suicides before school even started.
There were men that wanted to talk to children at all hours of the day and night.
On Snapchat. One thought it'd be a funny idea to talk the other one into committing suicide, and she did it. She's dead.
After about 6 weeks, we're able to crack his phone.
Kids right now are going to experience the worst of what we're going through.
Do you think your parents know that this happens?
No, my kid won't do that. My kid would never. My kid's school isn't like that. You're wrong.
Because what they see, they feel neurologically compelled to do.
Right now, we're effectively living in an experiment. How is this going to affect us? We'll find out.
I don't know how many times I've seen that, and I still have chills. It's a very, very powerful film. It's about an hour and a half in length. It's free. You can watch it on YouTube. I highly recommend it. You hear from children what they're going through. So that is a free resource right off the bat to help you understand, and I'd say, as middle school parents, you might not want to accept the fact that your 6th and 7th and 8th graders are already encountering this stuff, but they probably are. And if you haven't had any of these conversations with them around suicidal ideation, self-harm, eating disorders, depression, anxiety, predation, pornography, the list goes on and on, it might be a good idea to sit down and watch this with them. And then there's some conversations you can have after. So we know why we're here. We are all type A parents, right? We show up, we care, we're monitoring, we're pushing. There's a lot of parents who aren't here. And so after this, our job, taking what we have learned, is going to be to help educate these parents, help them understand, yes, it is overwhelming, but yes, there are things you can do. Our job is not only to make sure our kids are wearing seatbelts and sunscreen and that our carbon monoxide detectors have batteries in them. We've got to make sure our kids are okay. They have this tech, they're spending upwards of 8 hours a day in front of it. We can't sit and be a helicopter parent over them that whole time. We have to help them be okay. We have to help raise responsible digital natives. So, I'm glad you're here. I mentioned this briefly, but I just want to level set because we all need some grace, again, myself included. No other parent has ever had to parent in a time like this, ever, right? Like, I can't call my mom or my grandmother and say, what did you do when your child, received a new photo? Or what did you do when you were seeing a lot of misinformation on TikTok? Or, when did you get your first gaming console? None of that happened. We're the first generation of parents parenting in the tech world. So we have to lean on each other. It's not easy, but as long as our kids know that they are loved and we are a safe place for them, we'll get through this and we will be okay. This is a still from an ad campaign that we put together at BARC. I'll tell you about BARC in a minute. And it just really illustrates where we are. We can be, less than an arm's length away from our children, and we're, looking at everybody's best lives on Instagram, which is complete, crap. And they're struggling, and we don't even know it, because they don't even know how to tell us, and they might not want to tell us. So that's where we are, and that's why BARC exists. As you heard, BARC is a company that was launched here in Atlanta back in July of 2015. And fast forward to today, we help protect over 6.5 million children across the globe. We analyze text, email, social media for these problems, sending parents and caregivers alerts, and then best recommended next steps for how to address. How do you talk to your kids about this stuff? It's not easy. We also launched a smartphone this past holiday season. We have screen time, we have filtering, we help schools, but that's the context behind why do I know this stuff, and what do I do, and why am I here? So, what do you need to know? What do you do with all of this? The first thing I like to start with is the data. So I mentioned the 6.5 million kids. There's a lot of accounts and devices and data that our algorithm is processing every single day. Because of that, we have some learnings. So the rate at which children are encountering these things is staggering. Whether it's violent content, bullying, either as the bully, victim, or witness, self-harm and suicide, sexual content, etc. These are high percentages. Anecdotally, we are sending right now, it fluctuates, but right now we're sending between 85 and 100 severe self-harm and suicidal ideation alerts each day to parents and caregivers about their kids. It's the second leading cause of death in children in this nation. So we need to be aware. We need to not be afraid to talk to our kids about their mental health, about how it's okay to not be okay. And just like sometimes we scrape our knee and we need a Band-Aid, sometimes our hearts and our minds and our emotions are not well, and we need to get them to a place where they are well. Some other stats around predatory behavior, anxiety, disordered eating, these are on the rise. In fact, with regards to predators, the FBI recently released a warning to the general public about the rise in sextortion, particularly amongst young boys. Let's say you're a 16-year-old kid on Instagram and some cute person sends you a message and they look like they're your age and they're flirting with you and you're interested and you're excited, and eventually it leads to where you're sending images and video back and forth, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, they're not a 16-year-old peer, they're actually an adult, and now they're threatening me. They want money from me. They want me to send more photos and more videos. And if I don't, they're going to send the ones that I have shared with them to my friends, to my family, causing me shame. That is happening. It's happening so much that the FBI released an alert to the general public. We need to talk to our kids. We need to understand that good kids make bad choices. It absolutely can happen to our kids. And one of the biggest reasons why they don't tell us is because they're afraid we're going to freak out. They're afraid we're going to judge them. They're afraid we're going to punish them. They're afraid we're going to take away their lifeline, right, to the outside world. And while our parents may have disciplined or raised us that way, I would suggest we don't do the same. If you want to have a healthy relationship with your child and actually know what the heck is going on. So what do? It starts with conversations and modeling, right? We'll talk about some conversation starters in a minute, but just with modeling, I mean, I still have to remind myself, put the phone away. You know, my son gets home from school in the afternoon, and it's not after work, it's still work hours. There's plenty of emails and things that I need to get to, but if he walks in that door, I try to make sure I'm not in front of my computer. I work from home still. You know, I come and I give him a hug, and it's face to face, and he is a priority, not my screen. Dinner time, same thing. Phones upside down, phones on silent, etc. If he walks into the room we're in, I don't talk to him. Phone down. Phone not a priority. You, human, you are the priority. It starts with modeling. If I happen to be scrolling because I'm bored, you know, having conversations with my husband about whatever, I try to be really cognizant of what I am communicating to him. You know, we'll be talking about somebody's vacation. You know, oh wow, they're in the Bahamas. That looks amazing. And that's a learning opportunity. It's a teaching opportunity, right? You'd be like, wow, they're posting that photo, so now we know they're not home. Good thing we're not, you know, robbers. Good thing we're not going to go burglarize their home. Or, you know, they're posting these photos, but just because everything looks perfect and happy and tan and thin and there's no cellulite, we don't know the full story. There are filters that could be used. They could be fighting. They could have just racked up a ton of debt on their credit card and, you know, having to pay that off for the next 10 years. We just don't know the full story. Every single moment that you have with your child is fleeting and precious and is a learning opportunity, even when tech is involved. So model the behavior you wish to see in your child and have those tough conversations frequently. Be very candid, younger than you might think, more often than you might think, because our kids are desensitized. They're coming across these things at much younger ages than we did. I mean, just this past weekend I was at a super family-friendly restaurant eating with kids and adults, and they're streaming over the speakers songs with words that, like, you would not be allowed to say in front of anybody's grandmother. And, you know, we were playing a Spotify playlist that was safe for school, you know, but like, where we are as a society is they're saying all kinds of things in all the places, and our kids are seeing them and hearing them, and they are desensitized. Nothing can replace open and honest conversations with your kids. Nothing. No tech. Nothing. I covered this, but just to reiterate, earlier than you might think. For example, and you'll see this book in a minute as a resource, but once I started to do what I did at Bark and learn what I learned, especially around pornography exposure, when my son was 9 years old, we started talking about pornography. I used a book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures to help explain, you know, what it is, what it does to your brain, you know, all the things that we needed to talk about. And I didn't think I needed to do that right at 9, but I did, and I'm glad I did. Also, as you saw in the trailer, a lot of parents think, well, not my kid, not my kid. Or I'll know if something's wrong with my kid. No, it's all of our kids. All of our kids. Good kids make bad choices. Our frontal lobes of our brains, decision-making, impulse control, emotional regulation, it's not fully formed until we're in our early 20s, sometimes age 25. It's not their fault. They're still growing. And again, the modeling. Just please model appropriate behavior. Screen time. Big blocker. That's like the first tech blocker as you're a parent. You know, when your younger kids are like, do I let them watch TV? Do I let them play on this iPad? I just need to, you know, grab a shower, take a conference call, do something. And it's a great babysitter. You know, that ship has sailed, especially thanks to the past few years where we've had these screens to connect, to go to school, to have our jobs, etc. So the conversation is shifting less from screen time. How much time is okay? Well, you know, the less the better, but that's where we are in society. And more about what are we consuming? Are we just passively consuming content that isn't good, isn't uplifting, isn't educational? Or can we use tech as a tool? Are we creating? Are we curating? You know, Pinterest boards about recipes that we like because we're a budding chef. Are we competing? You know, I was surprised to learn that kids can now earn college scholarships for things like Rocket League. You know, that's pretty cool. I'm not mad at that. So screens can be used in a positive way. But again, we need to have those conversations about if we're just sitting still for too long as humans, you know, that affects our heart, that affects our muscles. And so we need to move. You know, we don't need to just be sitting still all the time. Also, what it does to your brain, the addictive qualities of it that are similar to if, you know, sat down with a tub of ice cream, right? You don't just let you have as much as you want of that. You should do the same thing with screens. So again, lots of conversations, bring in science. Science helps. Lean on the data. It's critical. FOMO. I know that if I was in 6th or 7th or 8th grade and I could see what my friends were doing without me, what concerts they were at, what sleepovers they were at, who broke up with who and now is with who else, that would crush me. That would gut me. I didn't need to be faced with all of that, but our kids are. They're growing up in an entirely different social landscape than we did. It's very hard. So just understand what they're going through. You know, I was shocked to learn that my son and his friends were using location tracking apps to keep track of their friends. And I'm like, okay, A, that's weird. But B, you know, what better way to feel left out than just to know where all of your friends are at all times and you're not. By the way, if your kids have Snapchat, there's Snap Maps inside of Snapchat that shows their location in real time to anybody they're connected with. So, if your kids have Snapchat, make sure they have it on ghost mode, which does not show their location. Also, if your kids have Snapchat, I implore you to beg them to make sure they're only connected with people they actually know in real life. Do you go to school? Did you go to school with that person? Do you play ball with that person? Do you know them in real life? Okay. If you've never met them, or they have a friend of a friend, get rid of it. Filtered life versus real life. I mentioned this earlier, but we need to keep reminding ourselves, right? Like, I'll follow some fitness influencers and some home decorating people, and like everything just seems so perfect and beautiful and curated, and it leaves you feeling kind of like, well, I got that laundry pile back there, and you know, mortgage, and just, yeah, cracked windshield, you know, the list goes on and on. And I'm an adult, I know the difference. Imagine if I'm 6th, 7th, 8th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. You know what I mean? Like, we've got to help our kids understand that even though they know, because they're intelligent, that what they see online is not real life, we need to continue to have that conversation because it really affects our self-esteem. And it really affects the self-esteem of girls and boys who are growing. They're awkward. There's the acne and the weight fluctuations, and everybody wants the perfect abs, and the, you know, and some of it's just unattainable, and it really messes with your head. Speaking of messing with your head, algorithms. Let's say that you're struggling and maybe you've done some exploring on how to restrict calories because you want to lose a few pounds and feel confident. Well, now TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever knows that you're into that kind of content, and they want to show you more and more of that. And that can become very dangerous for somebody who's on the border of, you know, disordered eating and body image issues. The amount of political misinformation, health misinformation, misogyny, violence, you name it, it's out there. And if your kids just happen to kind of stumble across it or show some curiosity into it, because we are curious as humans, and that's okay. Algorithms will show you more of what they think you want to see, because these social media platforms are not nonprofits. Their goal is to keep you in their apps for as long as possible. They want your eyeballs glued to the screen, because then they make more money off the more time you spend in their app, whether you're 12 or 52. So talk to your kids about algorithms and how their feed is different than their friend's feed, is different than your feed, is different from somebody in Oklahoma's feed. And they need to be in control of their feed. They need to be in control of their tech life. The tech does not need to be in control of them. In fact, right before I came on stage, I was, shocker, on my phone, and there was a mom who had posted in a Facebook group that I'll show you in a minute, you know, help, my 6-year-old is addicted to Fortnite. The mornings are, you know, really, really hard for us. And one of the things that I'm going to say to her after I leave here and get back on my phone is, you know, it's not your kid's fault. He's addicted. You've got to admit to him, like, hey, I made a mistake. I let you have this, and now it is in control of you. You're not in control of it. So you got to dial it back. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid, right? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun, but you got to do it. And we need to have a reset, right? It's okay to enjoy the tech. It's okay to enjoy the games, but not at the rate at which you're doing it, and not if it's going to make you behave that way. That's not you. That's addiction. Sexting. So, one middle school principal at a school closer to in town Atlanta told me recently that sexting was the new first base. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, yeah, it's happening, it's a problem. And we were giving our kids these devices. They can take pictures and video. What do you think they're gonna do with them? So we need to talk to our kids. It's gonna be awkward, but we need to let them know, like, hey, you do not have to send a photo or a video. You don't have to do that. There's no requirement, right? You're going to be pressured. You don't have to send it. In fact, please don't send it, because it's a violation of the law. There are laws in place governing this sort of thing. You know, any sort of nude photo or video of someone under the age of 18 sent, received, shared, etc., that's against the law. That's distribution of CSAM, child sexual abuse material. If your child receives a nude, they need to know to share it. If your child has sent something like that and they wish they hadn't, they want to, you know, take it down, prevent that distribution. Thankfully, the website, it's an organization called NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, just launched, like 2 weeks ago, an initiative called Take It Down. So you can Google NCMEC, NCMEC, Take It Down, and if you are a child under the age of 18, you can reach out to them, tell them what happened, where it has been distributed, and they will help you work to get it taken down, whether it was put on Twitter, shared in a text thread, etc. So just know that this is happening. Good kids make bad choices, kids feel pressured, and kids receive unsolicited nudes even if they didn't ask for them. So it's happening. Talk to your kids. It's awkward, and there are things that you can do to help remove that media. Slang. So this, there's 6 emojis up here right now, and we have volumes of slang terms and dictionaries, because kids are really cute and creative, and they come up with all kinds of various meanings for things. And this is just a short snippet to show you that if you are one of those parents that's like, okay, give me the phone, and you're gonna look through it, and you're looking at the text, or you're looking at the DMs, you still might not know what the heck they're talking about, right? And it changes so quick. This slide was created 6 months ago. Kids might not even be saying these things anymore. But I did want to show you right here. This is a plate of pasta, right? And what's in pasta? Noodles. And what does noodles sound like? Nudes. So just know that if you are, encountering some communication, you're like, what the heck are they talking about? Just maybe try to think of what else it could be. You know, the snowflake emoji, I've seen that represent cocaine. The school bus emoji, I've seen that represent a Xanax bar. I mean, the things that, right, plug, a plug emoji, right? Well, plug could stand for a drug dealer because they've got the hookup. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. But it's also an opportunity to talk with your kids. Like, hey, what's the weirdest, strangest thing you've ever seen online? You know, mom just learned that a plug can be a drug dealer. Like, I had no idea. Well, what else do you think I should know? You never know what they might say. Passwords. This is hard, especially as you get older and your kids crave privacy. But my son and I have an agreement where I have the passwords to his accounts, to his devices, to his gaming consoles. Not because I'm going to abuse them, not because I'm going to go in them every day and look at everything, but much like he doesn't have his own apartment with just one key because he's 14, not 18, same thing with his devices. I need to be able to get into them in case of an emergency. If I'm worried about his mental or physical health, I need to have the passwords. And so I don't check his phone every day because I have Bark. But if I was worried about him, if his grades were dropping, if his appetite changed, if I noticed some sleeping pattern disturbances, if he wasn't interested in the same things or people he used to be all of a sudden, those would all be signals to me that, hey, I might need to go take a look and see what might be going on in his digital signal. And if I go to one of his devices and the password isn't unlocking it, then he loses that. That's the understanding we have. Now, every family is different, and there are also some parents that unfortunately do abuse that privilege. And I will say, if you are, and I'm a recovering helicopter parent, but if you are, a parent who's like, let me see this every day, looking through everything, it's going to cause more friction. It's not going to help build that relationship with your child. So please just tread that landscape delicately. It's not an easy one. Every kid is different. Every parent is different. Tech contract. One good way to kind of set the ground rules before your kid even gets a smartphone or before you let them have Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram is to create a contract. You can even, go on Google and just say, free tech contract for families. There's plenty of them. We have one as well. With any important life event, whether it's buying a car, a house, getting married, whatever, you sign a contract. I think getting access to the world and letting the world access you is a pretty big deal and a good launching point for the conversations around here's how we will act online, here's how we won't act online, here's what we're going to do if XYZ happens, etc. It's a good conversation starter, and I will tell you that having this thing signed by my child and on the fridge has been very helpful many times. I'm like, yeah, no, we covered that. It takes a village. That's why I created a Facebook group called Parenting in the Tech World. We actually just hit 300,000 members today, which is insane. I mean, that group is lit, or big, engaging, exciting, lots of things going on in there. But I as a parent needed help figuring out what to do and how to do it and when, and apparently a lot of others did too. So if you'd like some free help talking about any of these things, it's a great group, and it has an anonymous feature where you can submit questions anonymously, much like you could tonight, and it's a great group to join. So this is what it looks like if you're on Facebook and you're looking for the group. That's what it looks like, and it's a great spot. Some other resources for, okay, now I've heard this stuff, I've got this pit in my stomach, what do I do? What are the next steps? Well, obviously I'm going to plug the book, but you don't have to read it. I just gave you the TLDR of what you need to know to parent in the tech world. But this book over here, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, excellent book for how the heck to talk to your kids about pornography. It's a big problem. It's impacting our children's ability to have healthy sexual relationships when it's time for them to do so. And so they need to know, the story behind the media, what it does to their brain, and that, some coping mechanisms for when they encounter it. Because it's really not a matter of if, but when. You saw the trailer for Childhood 2.0. Highly recommend you watching that. Not only is it on YouTube for free, but you know, any place really that you can stream movies besides Netflix. Essentially, you can find it Amazon Prime, Google Play, Apple Store. Really great piece to watch. Protect Young Eyes. Love this organization. They're a nonprofit. Data Force started it. His name's Chris McKenna. He lives in Minnesota. Really good friend of mine. He has testified on, you know, in DC for so many things. He's a great advocate for families and children, and I highly recommend going to his site, Protect Young Eyes, subscribing to his newsletter. That's how I stay up to date on all the things, and this is what I do for a living. So wonderful, wonderful site, wonderful resource, wonderful human. Our blog is awesome as well. We have a team of writers helping you stay up to date on just what you need to know. You know, what's the latest TikTok challenge? What's the most dangerous thing happening on Instagram right now? What do you need to know about, you know, online grooming and predators? You name it, we cover it. We've got a team of researchers and writers and advisors that are in the healthcare industry to help us guide you, because again, we need help. That's the company. If you want to follow it, put out a ton of great content. And then there's my name, Titania Jordon. I'm on all the places. And I guess now I will go to questions, which is on my laptop. I'm gonna do a little. Okay, awesome. I'm seeing the questions. So I will start with. How can I help my child navigate a tech world when I myself am so technologically challenged? Join the club. This is a great bonding experience. Our kids know so much more than we do. I mean, my son was teaching me about VPNs the other day, virtual private networks. He's like, oh, I don't care if TikTok gets banned. I'll just get a VPN and watch it, you know, and I'm like, here we go. And I work in tech, so, you know, ask your kids. Be like, hey, I know you want Snapchat. Let's put it on my phone. I'm gonna download it. I wanna learn about it. Show me all the ins and outs. Show me how it works. Learn the landscape that they're playing in. You can learn it together. And then you can have those conversations like, oh wow, what's this map thing? Oh, you can see where all your friends are in real time? That's kind of creepy, right? Like try to hold in the judgment and the freak out, but like, at least you'll have some insight. So it is not possible to keep up with our kids, it's just not, but you can try. Never stop trying and having those conversations with them and let them teach you. Next question. Any tips on helping kids to handle peer pressure or FOMO, fear of missing out? That's hard. You know, full disclosure, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I've seen plenty though, so I could probably play one on TV. But all kidding aside, it's just hard. There's really nothing that you can do to help your kid avoid the heartbreak other than to know that you're going to be right there alongside them through it. Like that's part of growing up, right? Is learning from our mistakes and feeling pain. And our job as their parents and caregivers does not remove every single boulder from their path, right? So they just have a clear, easy path. It's to help them navigate that rocky path and be their safe, loving place for when they are hurt, when they do feel pain. It's important to let them know you're here for them always. There's nothing they can do to ever lose your love, and that it does get better. It might feel like the biggest, worst thing ever. You get that, but it will get better. What age is appropriate for a device? What language or text or content will be flagged at what ages? Okay, so when it comes to a device for your child, how many of you have kids that already have smartphones? Okay, and how many of you have kids that don't yet? Okay, yeah, oh wow, good mix, 50-50. It just depends. What I will say is that delay is the way. That actually came from my friend Chris McKenna of Protect Young Eyes. I have never, ever, ever, ever heard parents say, I waited too long. I should have let my kid have a smartphone sooner. I should have let my kid download TikTok sooner. Never, not once. Seriously, never. On the flip side, I've heard way too many parents, and I have felt this myself, say, I wish I would have waited just a little bit longer. So, keep that in mind. If you don't feel the time is right, it's not. You can wait. Your kid will be fine. Now, do you want them to be the last person in their grade with a smartphone? Probably not, right? But you know your child. You know what they are capable of handling in some ways, their maturity level, their emotional and mental health. You know, are they sleeping at night? So many kids are just at a disadvantage because they now have these devices charging in their rooms and they're not sleeping all night long. If they're not sleeping, they're not growing, and they are not physically and mentally healthy. So a lot to consider. Delay is the way, but you know, if you're in a dual household, if your child has health issues, if they have a long commute, if you want to be able to text them, you know, there's things you have to evaluate. It's why we launched a smartphone in December, because so many kids are getting smartphones. It's the number one thing on their birthday, Christmas, whatever graduation wish list, right? They want smartphones. And so if they're going to be getting them, it might as well be a safe one. iPhones are not the best for kids. Androids are a better option. What is the safest social media app? None of them. There's no safe social media app. You know, for younger kids, like 6, 7, 8, 9, some of them use Facebook Messenger kids to chat with other kids. That's acceptable. That's fine. Other than that, you know, your 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, they're not going to want to use Facebook Messenger kids. They want Snapchat, they want TikTok, they want Instagram, they want Discord, they want Reddit, you know, they want all the things. So you can't keep them in a bubble. You shouldn't. They will feel left out if they don't have access to certain things. They will also be healthier and happier in a lot of ways if they don't have access to all of those things all at once. So if you are going to give them access, start with one at a time and make sure you have that app first. If you haven't downloaded it and played with it yet, don't let them, right? Like, you're not going to let them loose at Hartsfield Airport without ever having stepped foot in there yourself. Same thing with an app that can let them access humans across the globe. Let's see here. What are alternative punishments or consequences for teens if not taking away the phone? Ooh, I love that one. That's a great one. Yeah, taking away the phone is, well, your first instinct, and I've done that too, and not always, you know, like, yes, you can do that, but let the punishment fit the crime, right? Like, were they bullying somebody? Well, maybe it's time to go volunteer at a local shelter with kids that don't have parents, or, you know, like, think of ways that they can do good and contribute to the world that isn't just, you lost this, I'm in charge of it now. I'm going to address an in real life question before I go back to the chart. Yes? Yeah, so I'll repeat the question. I said Android is a better smartphone for a child than an iPhone. And so why is that? Well, anecdotally, I was on the phone with the former head of the New Jersey Internet Crimes Against Children Unit a few days ago. And he was like, just, you know, guess how many iPhones are in the US? And I'm like, I don't know, like 32 million or some crazy number, right? And he's like, okay, guess how many times Apple reported instances of child sexual abuse to law enforcement? And I was like, I have no idea. He said 10. Apple has repeatedly shown that it prioritizes privacy over child safety. Apple is a bear to work with in terms of its, any company's ability to monitor Apple devices. Androids are easier to monitor by parental control and monitoring companies. children more easily circumvent Apple screen time features versus Google Family Link and Google screen time filters. You know, this past winter, Apple was contemplating preventing children's ability to even send news, right? They were gonna say, you know, do you really wanna do this? Like, maybe don't do this. And then they took it off the table. Because again, they're prioritizing privacy over child safety. So, it's one thing if you're an adult, but if you know that 6 through 17-year-olds are using your devices, you need to do better. So, the Bark phone that we launched is an Android. We chose Samsung A13 model to go with. Our software is baked into it. You can't remove it because Android are the best, smartest, safest phone for kids. Yes?
Discord app, in terms of, I don't know a lot about it, trying to use it from time to time, but in terms of where it is in the list of good and bad.
Yeah, Discord. Discord app, let's just start with the name. Discord. That's not a good thing. But that's an aside. A lot of kids are on it. It's a very popular platform. A lot of fun, good, engaging things can happen on it. Alternatively, 2 days ago, I just read a story about a girl in Texas who she thought was a friend on Discord in a server. He lured her out of her home, and she was thankfully alive, but found in a shed in his backyard in North Carolina. There are predators on Discord. There is bullying. There is misogyny and sexual content and predators, and they've already said that, but there's just a lot of them there. There's bad things on Discord. Now, Discord has parental controls. You can set them up to where nobody can message your child. But you have to do the work. You have to go onto Discord and your child's platform profile and do that setting up. So, should you let your child use Discord? That's up to you, but don't do it unless you've had the conversation with them about what they might encounter, and letting them know you're a safe place if they see something weird or something that makes them uncomfortable, and never, ever, ever, ever meet anybody in real life that you've made a friend with online. Yeah.
We're Alpharetta High School. There are teachers that actually use Discord as one of their requirements. So it's, I mean, she's at Alpharetta. She was on social media. This kind of scared her a little bit because it really showed her not just mom saying it, but somebody else saying it. But she has to have Instagram for 2 different classes or just communication. I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard when, and I'll reiterate, coaches and teachers and trusted adults in our sphere, are encouraging us to use these platforms for collaboration, for education. Again, we can't keep our kids in a bubble. They're going to have to learn how to use these platforms at some point, but any adult is missing a vital teaching point if they're not giving the safety measures ahead of time and proactively communicating to the parents, like, hey, we're on this baseball team, and we're going to communicate via Snapchat. But here's what you need to talk about with your kids, and here's what they need to know, and here are the settings you need to have. It's hard. It is an uphill battle. Any other questions? Yeah.
We want our kids to be relevant. We want them to be happy socially. But is there any case to be made for opting out completely? What are your opinions on doing that? Just saying, no, I don't do Facebook. We're not going to do Facebook. We're not going to do Instagram. We're going to read. We're going to ride our bike. These novel things that all of us did. So I just wonder what your opinion is on just opting out completely.
I mean, that sounds amazing. I thought that would be my life. Like, I thought we would have no television in our home and we would just be reading all the time and spending time in real life with people. I love that. If that can be your reality, embrace it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's ideal, you know? I will say, though, you know, your child might feel left out at times, so make sure you're prioritizing. You're like, hey, you can be on Snapchat, but you can invite any of your friends over anytime. Anybody's welcome. Let's go do things together in real life. Yes?
I'm doing that. It wasn't my time, but all the kids come with iPhones.
Yeah, so, yeah, your kid might not have access to X, Y, or Z, but the friends that do come over do, and they bring them. One effective method is to have a tech basket. We're like, hey, welcome to our house. We're so glad you're here. Put them in the basket. They'll be here when you leave. House rules. And have a lot of good snacks. Okay, so yes.
Yes, I know you're not here for a sales presentation, but I actually would love to know about BARK and what benefits it has and how it might help our families. So I know you're here to teach us and educate us, but I'd love to know about your product.
Sure, yeah. So if you're watching online and you want to learn about BARK, just go to bark.us. That's our website. You learn everything that we have to offer and what we can do for you. For those of you here right now that are actually like giving me your eyeballs and not on screens, thank you. You can use BARK to monitor your child's iPhone, Android phone, and by monitor I mean you will connect their phone, their email accounts, their social media accounts, etc. to BARK's algorithm, and then BARK will run in the background, scan for dangers, send you alerts. For example, and some creepy person was DMing my son on Instagram, let's say, you know, even saying something innocuous like, hey, you seem mature for your age. That would be a BARK alert for predatory behavior. I could get it and decide, you know, whether to talk to him about it or not. You can get alerts for violent content, drug and alcohol content, you know, all the serious stuff you want to know about. So that's the BARK algorithm. We also have a smartphone. We launched that in December. Again, not because more kids need smartphones. Kids don't need smartphones earlier and earlier, but they're getting them. And so if and when you do decide your child needs a smartphone, you have a smartphone. It's the best, safest smartphone for kids. You're in control. It arrives safe. It's a game changer. I wish I had it for my son. So smartphones, monitoring. We help you with screen time. If you want to limit the amount of time that they're spending on any app, any website, any device, inside the home, outside the home. Also, if you want to set filters, if you want to try to filter out and just have them avoid encountering things that will send you a BARK alert, we do that too. So you can go to bark.us, learn more. It's a free 7-day trial. And I didn't tell you this, but if you don't get around to using it within 7 days, just ask our customer success team, like, hey, can you just extend that a little bit? We'll be happy to extend it for you. So yeah, that's about BARK.
Is BARK Technologies able to help identify trafficking networks in organizations?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. We have escalated well over 1,000 predators to law enforcement. We're in constant communication with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And some of you may have even seen a few years ago, we actually went undercover as an 11-year-old on Instagram, and within moments had adults contacting us. It's gut-wrenching, it's disgusting. And I have seen firsthand grown men talking to who they thought was an 11-year-old, and it was me. So, yeah.
We should connect afterwards because I work for a company called Zero Trafficking. We're all former intelligence guys. I'm from DIA, former CIA guys, NSA guys. We're actually scraping it into the web for networking.
Awesome.
Basically, just sex trafficking networks. So.
Awesome, yeah. I'm up after. Thank you.
I know that you just mentioned that the BARK phone was released recently in December, so it's quite new. Have you yet experienced any unfortunate circumstances with that phone, or has it proven thus far to be pretty effective?
So far, it has proven to be very effective. Have we had a few bugs with sometimes certain text messages like not being there, with little glitches, right, with new tech, but nothing. Knock on wood. Our engineering team is solid. We have great partners. We have a great tech staff, and it's amazing. In fact, the phrase that I hear most often from parents is, "It just works," which is great because with a lot of tech, it's frustrating. And we're also releasing a lot of things too. When we first released the phone, we made it so that text messages couldn't be deleted, because a lot of times kids will hide stuff, so that you don't see it. But that proved to be problematic because even though kids were only connected to their trusted contacts, sometimes those trusted contacts would send things that you would want to delete. So in fact, 2 days ago, our engineering team released the capability for parents to go into settings, toggle the ability to delete text, get rid of the stuff they want to get rid of, and then toggle it back on. So we're constantly iterating, and I'm really proud of it, and I would buy that over any other phone for my own kid. Thank you. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. Back there, yeah?
Do you have documentaries that you recommend letting your kids watch? If we're new to technology, we don't have any, so how do you educate them to the realities, not just this is mom saying?
Kid-friendly educational materials. That's my dream this year, is to create something like that. In the meantime, NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has a ton of free resources that are based on age and stage. Cartoon characters, healthy terminology, you name it. So just Google NCMEC, NCMEC educational materials. There's so much out there to educate kids on how to stay safe online, no matter how old they are. One really powerful just learning tool you can use is Google. Google kid contacted by stranger on Roblox. Pull up the story. Show your child and say, hey, there's this tricky person that, this kid thought they were playing with a friend on Roblox and was really an adult. I wanted to let you know this really happened to a real kid your age who was probably really, really smart just like you. Let's not let that happen to you.
Is the documentary that you recommended, that's not kid-friendly?
I would say it's not for under 4th or 5th grade. Really not for, it talks about suicide. It talks about pornography. It talks about sexting. So your kids have probably encountered that by middle school, but if you haven't had those conversations with them yet, that'll be probably a really staggering thing to watch together. So, but watch it first. Yeah. So you have Bark Technologies info, my info, Google me. Connect with me anytime. I really welcome. I get DMs all the time. I'm not super fast because I sleep at night. But I will respond, and I'm happy to help. Whenever you need it. And thank you so much for having me.